Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome to episode 38 of Radio Europa. No William today, unfortunately, so I'm standing in as your guest host. My name's Laura and I'm over in England, and tonight I am joined by Darth in Scotland and Darren from England as well. Hey guys.
Evening.
Hello.
Hey. So just a couple of things before we begin. We would just like to say thank you to somebody called Blackwater Park, who gave us a very generous donation of €100 a few days ago. I'm not sure if you're listening right now. If you are, thank you very much for supporting the project. So we have two topics today. One is the EU meme ban, or Article 13, and that's going to be the major focus of the conversation. It's quite scary, really. And we're also going to talk about a study from the UK, which has revealed the 10 happiest places to live. I need to find the article, actually, if somebody could send me it. But before we begin, there has been a press release from the European Parliament 6 hours ago. And I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called End Racist Discrimination Against Afro-European People in the EU. Have you guys seen the press release, Darren and Darth?
I saw we got on it.
What is an Afro-European person? There's no such thing as an Afro-European person. It's apparently there's 15 million of them in the EU. So the press release is saying that we need more focus in EU long-term budget for people of African descent, calling for reparations for crimes against humanity during European colonialism. And MEPs have called on the EU and its member states to take measures to tackle the structural racism people of African descent face in Europe. It's just so tiresome, isn't it? Do you guys have any thoughts on this? Have you read the press release?
I was reading it earlier. We already have more than enough in place to put in favour those from the BAME community, such as they don't need to be as clever to work in the fire service or get into university, etc. And now this is part of a whole other slew of reparations we're meant to pay because of what happened in the past. Ignoring the whole Barbary slave trade, of course. We're not going to see anything from that. But it's just the usual shit you'd expect to come from the EU.
The thing that stands out for me is there's an article I've got, it's europeaninterest.eu, and the kind of last paragraph, evidence suggests that Afro-European children receive lower grades at school than their white counterparts, and their rate of early school leaving is markedly higher, and this somehow suggests racism. It's just they used statistics like this to suggest racism when there's quite clearly other explanations, but nobody wants to acknowledge those explanations.
Yeah, so on one side, they're saying we're all the same. There's no difference in IQ and genetics and all that stuff. And the reason why these people are behind at school is because of institutional racism. But then on the other hand, they're saying, but we must pay reparations to Black people. It's like, make your mind up, guys. Either race is real or race isn't real. And I can show you that race is real, and that's why these people aren't doing as well in education and they aren't getting chosen for, the top jobs and stuff, because IQ is a very real thing. But that was just a short press release that we just wanted to just reveal, really, before we go on to the main topics. I think Defend Europa TV has posted it in the chat, so feel free to read it. It's quite scary, really. So on to the first mini topic, and then we're going to move over to Article 13. So there was a study done in England today, and they've picked the happiest places to live in England. And it was a study done by the Royal Mail, and it examined factors such as life expectancy, crime rates, and personal well-being. Now, I'm going to read the top 10 places which are the happiest places to live in England. I haven't heard some of these places said out loud before, so I'm just reading them. So if I pronounce them wrong, I do apologise. But the top 10 places are Winchester. I don't know how to say that. Babergh. Do you guys know how to pronounce that?
Barber.
Yes. Rushcliffe, Chiltern, Ribble Valley, Waverley, Forest Heath, Surrey Heath, Elmbridge, and Epsom and Ewell. Ewell?
Ewell.
Yeah, thank you. So they're the top 10 happiest places to live in the UK. Now, pop quiz, guys. Who can guess the link between those 10 places?
They're all above 80% white, other than Epsom.
They're all above 90% white, other than Epsom, which is 86% white. And it has a very large category of Asian other. So I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what Asian other is, because it's not Pakistani, it's not Bangladeshi, it's not Chinese, because they have their own categories. So I'm not sure when it says Asian other if it's talking about like Afghanistan or Japan.
Indian or something like that?
Indian's got its own category. So I don't know what it means by Asian other. I don't know if it's Japanese or if it's people from
Korea.
The middle. Yes, maybe. But anyway, these 10 places are all incredibly white. So I'm sure that hasn't shocked anybody. I feel like posting the Pikachu meme, you know, with the shocked face. What do you guys think of that then?
Darren, on you go.
It's not a massive surprise, really, and it kind of ties in with the top 5 European countries, because they're all very white as well, which, funnily enough, the UK is on, but based on 2011 statistics. But people are going to say this is racist for saying that it's because it's 90% white. It would be the same if there was large groups of white communities in non-white countries, and the percentage will come back that the happiest people are the ones living amongst their own.
I think the thing that stands out for me is, you know, you've got your celebrities are all pushing for, you know, more diversity. We need to let refugees in. We should be willing to open up our homes. And the ones who are pushing these rhetorics live in the most homogenized areas in the country. And I take that as a sign, you know, the people who are shouting about this the loudest are oftentimes the ones who live in, you know, the most white areas in the UK. And if you're looking at them and saying, right, well, you guys clearly don't believe in what you're saying, so there must be a correlation between this. You know, if you are saying this, it must be just solely for, and we know it is, it's solely for virtue signalling, but if they are self-removing themselves from other ethnic groups, then there's clearly a reason as to why that is.
Yeah, I mean, I know what they'll do. They'll say, they'll do the chicken or the egg argument, where we're saying crime is lower in these areas because more white people live in them. They'll say, well, actually, no, it's social deprivation, and that's why black people are turning to crime, because white people are racist. And it's just so predictable. But they never pick places like Tottenham or Hackney, do they? It's never like these, you know, 30% white British cities that are the happiest places. And I'm up in Yorkshire, and I think York was top of the list a couple of years ago. I'm not sure why it isn't now, actually. I'm quite offended at that. But York was the top of the list, and York is 94% white. So it's kind of a bit of a, like, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit, don't they? Because they pick these white places as being happy. And then, I mean, what else can you say to that? You can't really argue against it, can you?
I'm going to also go out on a limb and say that the happiest places also have the lowest crime rates.
Yeah, so they have low crime rates, and it's also things like good well-being. I'm not sure how they judge that, but maybe it's things like health and fitness and stuff, I don't know. Sense of community, that kind of stuff, life expectancy. So
it's personal well-being, life expectancy, average earnings, inequality within area, carbon emissions for some reason, crime, levels of deprivation, and access to healthcare is the Royal Mail Happiness Index. Yes,
so final thoughts on that. Import the third world, become the third world. So we're going to move over to the major topic of the night, which is Article 13. So this is huge news, and it was only confirmed today, but Article 13 is only a small part of a wider directive, which is called the Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market. And the idea is that big platforms like YouTube are making loads of money by sharing content which belongs to other people, so like music videos and stuff. So they make all the money and then they do not funnel it back to creators. So big platforms now, because it's been voted through by the European Parliament, are legally responsible for any copyright content that they host. So they either have to set up partnerships with the people who own the content, which they do anyway with, you know, major music brands and stuff, or they have to stop us, the users, from being able to upload any content that could be copyrightable. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I think you know what I mean. So basically they have to do anything that they can to stop people from being able to upload copyright material. So that's an intro. Darth, I know that you've done quite a lot of research on this. Can you tell us a little bit more and maybe tell us why it's so scary?
Well, I don't know about quite a lot of research, but I'll do my best. So I think, you know, what people, the biggest thing is it's the EU obviously that's been pushing this, but I think one of the biggest groups that have been in favour of this is obviously your artists, your people who are creating music or whatever, and obviously they are missing out because certain things they're not making money off of content that's being shared without, you know, them getting benefit from it. But I can understand in a way why they're trying to do this, but ultimately the biggest thing is they're wanting to put in this legislation to try and kind of balance the board and make sure that content creators are getting money, or getting pay for what they do. But the way that they are then proposing to try and fix this is copyright everything. You know, so if you put a video online and, you know, you're singing a song, say Taylor Swift, the worry is that that's going to be copyrighted. You know, that's not going to be allowed online. Now, apparently there have been several kind of exceptions written into the legislation to allow for this kind of thing. But what people are worried about is the proposal to stop things being uploaded wrongly is they have some kind of algorithm, some kind of content filter. So everything gets scanned. These companies would be forced to scan everything prior to it being uploaded, and then it would be deemed as to whether this is a copyright strike or not. And obviously we know how bad algorithms are when it comes to content. You know, something like YouTube or Facebook, certain things aren't coming to the top when they should be. So the worry is that if you upload a short video with a song contained in it, or as we all have spoken about, a meme with a picture, the worry is that these things are going to be copyrighted, even when it's something that's clearly just parody or something just for fun. And these copyright algorithms are basically saying, nope, there's something in there that's copyrighted, so it's not getting uploaded. So you're then going to eventually have nothing gets uploaded which has any kind of chance of being a copyright strike.
Yeah, and I'm just reading the chat, and a couple of people are saying that these are just directives and not laws, which is correct. But I think it's just very naive to consider that this won't be enforced. And we know that, for example, in South Africa, when they were talking about the land expropriation, people were saying it's just a directive, it's not going to pass through. And then they got the land seized off them. And with the UN Migration Pact, people were saying, you know, it's just a directive, it's not legally binding. And now all of a sudden we find out that it is legally binding. So let's not kid ourselves what the EU are trying to do here. I think it's pretty terrifying. And as somebody who has a YouTube channel, sometimes when I upload a video, before it's even public, I get a message from YouTube saying that somebody's filed a copyright claim against part of my video. And it's always a really kind of, it's always something that isn't, it's just me talking, or, you know, just a photo that I took on the screen. And then, so they demonetize my video, and then I file a claim, and then they accept it. But what I'm trying to say is they get it wrong. And what they're talking about doing with this directive, it's going to be upload filters. So when you upload something, it's like an algorithm, and it scans it to see if there's any copyright material in it. But as Darth said, it could be just a picture, or in the past, there's been people who have uploaded videos with bird songs in them, and it's picked up the bird song saying that's a song. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the things that it can really go down to the tiniest little sound or the tiniest little picture, and it's going to make it very difficult for us to share content online. Darren, do you have any thoughts?
As you were saying, Laura, it's going to be so difficult once the filters are uploaded or the upload filters are put there. So you could be standing next to a professional photographer taking a picture of the same thing or an event. Obviously, his is going to become the copyrighted picture. You standing right next to him using your iPhone, taking the same picture, you upload it, you're going to get a copyright strike, for instance, because you're looking at the same place and you're right next to someone and you get screwed. And it's quite... You can all read between the lines here when the Pirate Party in Germany said that it's the big media companies that want this to take place because they're worried about losing money. And we know who's in charge of the big media companies. But aside from that, there's something about how you can't take photos or videos in football stadiums. People do that now. I can't see that ever getting policed. But when you get home from the football or any sport, you go and upload your photos, your family photos, and Facebook's going to say no because they don't want to get fined for you putting a picture up that you've taken.
I think the other thing...
Sorry,
I was going to say the other thing is a lot of the memes and GIFs, as much as a lot of them are just stupid and fun, it's ultimately free advertising for a lot of things. So like Darren just mentioned, if you're at the football and you take a video of somebody scoring a goal, that video then becomes a portion of that video then becomes a GIF or a meme. That's free advertising for that person. Whether it's good advertising or bad advertising, the argument is there is no such thing as bad advertisement because you're getting your name or your business mentioned regardless of whether it's good or bad, and sales or knowledge of this group or person or company will inevitably go up. So if a lot of these things are being stopped from being uploaded to the internet, the way I see it is the European Union is going to shoot itself in the foot. You're then kind of ultimately censoring free advertisement, which a lot of people, whether they admit it or not, actually like having free advertisement. I mean, probably the best example of free advertisement in current time is probably Trump getting elected to the United States president. Or the other one, with Gillette, that advert they did, everybody was talking about it. As much as they received bad advertisement, it was still advertisement, and their sales went up because of it. So if the EU then start forcing these big tech companies, and bear in mind these big tech companies don't actually want this to be implemented because it's more money that they've got to spend. If they're being forced to do this, then I think they're going to kill a lot of the free advertisement that individuals and companies will receive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just YouTubers going on camera and wearing a brand, on their clothes, the big YouTubers. I mean, I'm not sure if they have to be careful with that already, because I suppose it depends what your YouTube channel's about. I don't think I could make videos about deporting people and wear like a Nike t-shirt or something. But people do look up to those people and then go out and buy the clothes. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. And if I understand correctly, quite a lot of big people are against Article 13, including obviously like YouTube and the big platforms are against it because it's extra work for them. But also the original founders of the internet have critiqued it as well and said that it's just impossible to uphold because it goes against current European laws at the moment. So there's kind of a bit of hypocrisy there. Do you guys know anything about that and some of the famous people who have spoken out against it?
I've not seen it myself, but it's interesting. What is it? The 30th anniversary of the internet this week or last week? And then this comes out, which spoils the whole point of the internet, which is illegal downloads and memes. But I haven't seen who else has been made a big deal out of it. I'm not sure how it's going to affect the UK, because they say each country can take on the laws or interpret it how they like. But I don't think will it affect us here, because we don't know if we're still going to be in the EU or not once this comes into play. What do you reckon?
There was a video I'd listened to. I'll link it in the YouTube chat. It's about 8 minutes long, and the guy who's doing the video, he kind of references all the people who have come out against it. And there is a lot of kind of well-known groups or people who are speaking out against it. But I don't know. I just don't see it being a good thing to happen. But I guess only time will tell. One thing I did see was there was the petition the online petition for this received 5 million signatures, and there was over 100,000 protesters this weekend. So I'm guessing that was the weekend past there. So I guess we all know, there's the petition for Brexit to be rescinded has, I think, reached 3 or 4 million now. So it's no small petition, but I guess these petitions probably have very little impact on these kind of legislative decisions being made now. But it's amazing how many people did come out against this. 5 million is no small amount of people, and 100,000 protesters as well, no small amount of people, and they've just completely ignored it. I think the article that I'm reading here, a big quote is, the European Parliament has abandoned common sense. I think when you have to explain so deeply where the positives come from this, that in and of itself says to me that it's a bad piece of legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just reading the chat as well, and people are talking about VPNs and saying, is it kind of possible to say that you're not in an EU country? But I might be wrong, but I'm not sure it works like that. I think even if people in EU countries are watching your content, then are you counted as having to be legislated there as well? Do you guys know? I think maybe it's not just the content, the country of the person who uploads the content. I think if people in EU countries can watch it, it counts as well. I'm not sure. But I read an article saying that it will pretty much affect us all. Hopefully it will get reversed, or it will get stopped or something, because people are talking out against it. Even, people like PewDiePie and a lot of big kind of platforms and stuff are talking out about it. Guys, if anybody has a question for the panel, we usually take questions in the second half of the stream. So any questions about anything to do with news or nationalism, or any questions for me, Darth, or Darren, feel free to ask them in the chat. And if you tag DETV, we'll make sure that we read them out. So do you guys, there's not really much else to cover about the Article 13 legislation, other than it's just pretty scary, really, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Do you guys have anything else to add about it?
Not really to that. I was going to bring up something else that happened today, even though it happened in America, but...
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Jussie Smollett has been released without any charge for pretending to have a racially charged attack.
He's faked a hate crime against himself and has been released, to my understanding, with only having to do some community service because he forfeited $10,000. It's insane. There was something like, if I remember correctly, it was either 19 or 26 charges were put against him. All of them have been dropped, and his entire profile, the word escapes me right now, but basically his criminal record has been wiped clean if he had a criminal record prior to this. And I just think, who is pulling the strings behind this, or what has he done to get that? Because okay, America's very different to here, but can you imagine in any other circumstance somebody being, spending money and hiring people to commit a hate crime against him, and it's proven almost beyond reasonable doubt that he implicated himself in doing this, and then they turn around and said, you know what, we're not actually going to pursue charges. And it was a prosecution that dropped the charges. It wasn't even like, a judge threw it out. It was the people who were bringing the charges against them turned around and said, you know what, we've changed our minds, we're not going to do this anymore.
unsurprisingly, the prosecution, or the spokesperson for the prosecution, is of the same background as Jussie Smollett.
And they're trying to make him out, you know, that he's been the victim all along, you know, and, you know, he's been hurt by this, and, you know, he needs to be allowed to go back to focusing on his family and his career. Now, I mean, okay, left-wing media places are probably going to welcome him back with open arms, I would imagine, or at least some people will, but he has tarnished his reputation beyond belief for doing this. And it's, in my eyes, it's one of the worst, I guess, non-violent, as much as he was alleging violence that happened to him, it's one of the worst non-violent crimes you can do, because ultimately what you're saying is I am a victim, and I was victimized for my race, when actually you weren't. It was just to get, you know, you were effectively just so you could virtue signal and say how racist America is and how corrupt America is, and then you get off scot-free with it because reasons.
And that's it. Plus, a lot of people were saying because of what he's done, everyone's going to stop believing gays or minorities who genuinely are being beaten up because of those two reasons. And now this has just made a mockery of that as well. So you think the left would go against this decision as much as we have. No. But they won't.
Well, I mean, you only have to look at the other thing that happened in America in the last few days to look how. Okay, I'm gonna kind of clarify. It's the far left, you know, the fringe left, as opposed to just the left wing in general. But you know, all you have to look at is the outcome of the Mueller report and how there's going to be no further indictments. Trump is not going to be indicted. None of his family are going to be indicted. And the mainstream media in the States are still saying how, oh, well, it must have been A.G. Barr, he must be colluding, or he must be covering up something that Mueller did, or they just will not let the Russia scandal drop. You know, they're determined that Trump has to have done something. You've got guys like Bill Maher is turning around and saying, I don't need to see what's in the Mueller report. I have a television. I know that Trump's guilty. And when people are saying that, you're just too far gone, and people on the left are just, some people on the left are just too far gone to see reason or be reasoned with.
You could show them evidence of whatever you want, and they will just refuse to believe it, or they do believe it, but they don't care because it doesn't fit with what they want.
Yeah, it doesn't fit their narrative.
I mean, I know this has been mentioned quite a few times amongst these circles over the last couple of weeks, but the Australian ex-supply teacher, Mike Stuckbury, over here, he's written posts saying about Nazis, punch them, punch them, punch them. He said he didn't care that the AFD member was beaten up. He said that the other day in a tweet. Yet he's playing the victim because someone knocked on his door at 10 o'clock at night and 5 in the morning.
Yeah, it's just because it was Tommy Robinson that knocked on his door. Had it been any other person, they probably wouldn't have made as much of an issue. But because it's his arch nemesis that knocked on his door and basically was wanting to know why, you know, he was responsible for organising to have people turn up at Tommy Robinson's house, 6 of them, you know, he's getting up in arms and playing himself out to be the victim when he is by far from the victim.
And they see nothing wrong with having an ex-druggy racist turn up at your door, orchestrated by a lawyer who's meant to hold himself up to higher standards. But thankfully the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the SRA, have actually said they're concerned about what that solicitor's done, and they're looking into it. So
did you guys see the tweet from Stefan Molyneux as Jussie Smollett was arrested? He said something like, Jussie is Black, Jewish and LGBT. Let's see who really has privilege in America. And he's got off, hasn't he? So I thought that was quite a clever tweet. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I saw something similar to it. You know, it's like the ultimate minority. You know, so what they're saying is they're never going to prosecute somebody that has that many potential victim cards on his side. They're never going to prosecute somebody for that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few questions that we've got. there's a couple of people who are asking about Lucy Brown, who did an interview with the BBC. So Lucy and I did a stream last night on my channel, if anybody wants to go and watch it after this, where we just spoke about the hypocrisy from the left and how they cover their eyes and cover their ears if they like the perpetrator and if they don't like the victim. And they all claim that they're feminists and they're open-mindedness and tolerance and inclusion and all that stuff. But then if there's ever violence towards the right from the left, they just ignore it. And she did an interview with, I think it was BBC Radio 4 today, and apparently they edited it really badly and cut her off halfway through, and they've basically called her a Nazi. So I don't know if you guys want to go and check that out, but just don't talk to the BBC. They're not our guys. They're just awful, and they will just edit it to make you look really, really bad. But I think she's retweeted the link to the interview if anyone wants to go check it out. A few other questions. Laura, have you ever met Millennial Woes in real life? I have actually. Yes, I've met him once. He's a nice guy.
He's actually very funny, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's he's nice. He's really quirky, I thought. You know, kind of like funny and yeah.
He drinks far too much Coke.
He does. He drinks a lot of Coke. Yeah, and smokes. He needs to stop doing that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So there's a question from Martin Anderson. If linking to original content becomes illegal, can we not make a legal contract so that all people part of that contract can share content with one another, like the GNU software license? Now, I'm afraid this is completely over my head. I have no idea about this. Do you guys have any idea about the GNU software license?
No.
Nope.
No, we're not techie, sorry. Sorry, Martin. Maybe we'll have to find out about that and get back to you if that's okay.
I'm sure we can ask Neil. I'm sure Neil knows about it.
Yeah, we can ask our tech guy and find out. But I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure how we can stop it, because I'm not confident that we're going to leave the EU anyway. I mean, it's already been extended, and they seem to be trying to do everything that they can to stop us from leaving. I'm not sure which EU laws we'll keep if we do leave anyway. So, I think it's scary. I mean, I don't know if anyone is also subbed to my channel, but I uploaded a video about American History X on my channel, and there were some clips from the movie in, and I thought, I think this might get flagged for copyright, but I uploaded it anyway, and they didn't flag that video at all. But then there's really kind of innocuous videos that I've made where I've just gone through my 23andMe results and stuff like that, and they have been flagged for copyright. So the algorithm is just so wrong. It just pulls through the most safe kind of respectful things. And I also just worry that they will use it as an opportunity to clamp down on the so-called far right as well. I don't think any kind of left-wing people are going to suffer on a freedom of speech level, but I think people on the right definitely will. What do you guys think about that? Do you think they'll use it to kind of crack down on us a little bit further?
They don't need any excuse, really, do they?
I mean, I think anything it might be getting put in with good reasons at the front, but I think a lot of things are going to be test cases, like this whole, pornography ban that's going to be coming in allegedly on the 1st of April. I still don't know if this is just going to be a government April Fool's thing or not, but them putting that in, I think that's on the surface, it's supposed to be a good thing to stop children from being able to see pornography and having to sign up for a masturbation license. But I think it's going to be a kind of test case to see how people get round their legislation using, I don't know, VPNs or whatever, so they can then try and kind of tackle that in the future. Once they've got that kind of worked out, then they can start with kind of further internet censorship. That's kind of the narcissist in me anyway, thinking that.
Is that actually going to happen from April, where you're going to need a license to watch gentlemen's TV on the internet?
Allegedly, yes. Apparently, you're going to need to. I mean, again, it could just be some big, massive troll. But allegedly, I've read articles about it, and apparently, you're going to have to go and effectively give your details and buy some kind of
wanker's card.
I guess so, yeah, for want of a better phrase.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable. And I mean, I don't know how hard it's going to be to enforce if they do it, but it's crazy.
How embarrassing. They everyone's got their different opinions on porn, but making someone go to the shop where there's going to be someone they know in there and go, "Excuse me, sir, have some fags and I need a £5 card for the internet."
Well, if you want to look at it this way, I mean, shops used to sell pornographic magazines. Now, how many people do that now? How many people go into a shop and buy them? People used to do that. So I guess if people are really desperate to watch pornography, they'll do it because they want to. But yeah, it does seem a bit of a crazy thing to do.
Someone's asked. Sorry, Laura.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's like reverting back to the days before I were born, when if people wanted to look at pictures of naked ladies, they had to go buy a magazine, and you're just going to have to go and, into the shop again. But I did actually see an article about one concern that they have is that people will just sell them on. So people will get these cards and then just sell them on to teenagers and stuff for a profit. So I don't think.
Well, I think you might need to have identification or something like that along with it. So it's not just you go down and purchase said wanking license. I think you're going to have to give some kind of identification as well. From what I understand.
We're just going to have to go back to the old days of looking through people's windows.
Just stop. Don't look at porn anyway. It's really bad for you. Apparently, I've read a few studies on it, and it stops you from being able to form meaningful relationships in later life. So you watch something which is quite. I'm talking about porn on the live stream. You watch something which is quite basic, and then that no longer gives you a thrill. So you move on to something worse, and then something worse, and then something worse. And then there's all these stories of people not being able to be satisfied by their girlfriends or their boyfriends because they watch so much porn. I just think it's so dangerous anyway. Or
there's stories of guys physically not being able to become, ready to have sex because they've watched that much porn that their body doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I just think it's a very bad thing anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't watch it, but I guess girls don't. But I just think that people should take a break from that. So maybe this is a good thing. Do we have any more questions?
Someone asked what that picture is with the torch, as in that picture of me.
Oh, what is it?
It's a torchlight march, not from Charlottesville, but from Latvia. In November last year on their Independence Day, which they have every year. Actually, thousands of people in Riga, where there's different sensibilities in that they're not as PC as they are over here, come out to the streets, perfectly good-natured, all families walking with torches. There's a few people that think it's far right, but it's not.
Yeah, so
it's worth a visit.
Did Vice not write an article about you this time because you were there?
No, not this time. They'd given up with me by then.
Yeah, they usually do. So we have another question. Discuss the difference between American boomers and the English old generation. Any thoughts?
I think American boomers are far more patriotic than the UK equivalent. I might be wrong on that. Possibly that's because of I have kind of some American heritage as well. But I see far more kind of boomer Twitter profiles where there's strong kind of patriotism for America, and you still see it for the UK, but I think there's kind of more of narcissistic kind of self-hating of the United Kingdom. It's not as cool to be patriotic these days in the UK as it is in the USA. Although the whole Trump era has kind of brought about a self-hating of America as a whole, especially on the left. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask the question, but that's kind of my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I can highlight any obvious differences between the two. I think my mum's a boomer. I think she's like only just a boomer by about 2 years. But yeah, I mean, boomers get a lot of hate. You know, they're Europeans like us. We need to be nice to them. I mean, they do say the most infuriating things sometimes. And I remember seeing somebody tweet that boomer isn't an age group; it's a state of mind. So maybe that's more accurate. So there's a question from Zero, who is a friend of mine. So hey Zero, hope you're doing well. Recently, Martin Sellner from Generation Identity Austria has been once again sent to court by bullshit charges from the authorities. Do you guys have any insight on that? So I've not followed this story. I didn't know that he'd been sent to the courts again. Have you guys followed this story at all?
I heard that he got nicked today, or his flat was searched because of what happened in Christchurch. It's obviously what happens over the other side of the world was driven by what Martin does in his house. But that's all I've heard. I haven't heard anything beyond that.
Right.
I haven't heard anything. Although I would just on this note, I seem to remember us maybe it was in an early podcast was spoken about. Did the government here not pass legislation last year or the year before where they basically said anyone who is found with kind of extreme right material on or found to be exposing extreme right material could be arrested and charged for terrorism offences? Am I imagining that, or was that something that we spoke about before?
Only if you're part of a prescribed group, I think. So if you're part of National Action, you're going to get nicked.
I have a funny feeling that if people are found, to be sharing this stuff in the UK, they'll probably be arrested for it as well. Even though New Zealand, obviously, there's this guy who's supposed to be facing up to 14 years in jail for passing it about. I get the impression, maybe not as severe, but similar things would happen here. It's just that the fact that New Zealand has been in the media far more than the UK for this kind of thing right now.
Yeah, was it Amber Rudd who was trying to pass legislation about 6 months ago where anybody who is circulating what's considered extreme material on the internet can face up to 15 years in prison, I think it was.
That was it.
Yeah. So, but they classified extreme as being far right, and as we know, the media call UKIP and civic nationalism and stuff far right. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to have come into effect, but I just think the way that we're creeping to all these laws, I just think it's getting worse, and there's such a big crackdown on what we're allowed to say. If it's not on the internet, it's in real life. And I mean, it's cliche, we say it all the time, but it is becoming more and more like 1984 every day in Britain.
The laws are deliberately vague as well, so
yeah, exactly.
So they can go for whoever they want.
Yeah. Just to go back to the Martin Sellner story. So apparently they're trying to link him to the New Zealand attack, and somebody said it's because the shooter donated $1,500 to Martin. Also, the mainstream media has said. So I'm not sure if that's genuine, or I don't know if they're just trying to say that he did that so that they can, have a go at Martin for it. But yeah, I mean, I just don't believe anything that the mainstream media says. This whole Great Replacement thing, where they're trying to implicate us for talking about the Great Replacement in that terror attack, that I just find that disgusting as well. And I know that we spoke about it last week with Generation Identity, but it's just ongoing, isn't it? They're trying to say that anybody who speaks about the Great Replacement and spreads that conspiracy theory is responsible for the terror attack. And then did you guys see that a Tory MP today used the phrase cultural Marxism?
That was hilarious, and everyone's crying about it.
Yeah, and they're calling her a Nazi, and she's one of her parents is from Kenya and one of her parents is from Mauritius, so she's non-white, and they're calling her a Nazi because she used the phrase cultural Marxism, which of course is another conspiracy theory to the mainstream media.
Cultural Marxism is trending on Twitter right now, I think.
Oh, is it? Well, that's good. I hope that people will go and research that, just like I hope that they will go and research the Great Replacement as well, because the mainstream media is saying it's a conspiracy theory, but they're not giving any evidence to debunk it. So I hope that, that people will go away and research it themselves. Okay, so I think, I don't think we have any more questions, so I think we might wrap it up and do a bit of a shorter episode. We've done 50 minutes, so I guess that's okay. Do you guys have anything else to add about any of the topics or anything else you'd like to bring up tonight?
No, I'm okay.
No? Okay. Well, we're going to say goodbye then, guys. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're actually over 100 viewers, which is fantastic. I think the last few streams that we've done, we've been over 100 viewers. So thank you all for being here with us every week and sharing the stream. Please give us a follow on Twitter if you don't follow us already. We're at Defend Europa. If you would like to support Defend Europa, there are ways that you can do that. There are some links underneath the video. I think we have Streamlabs, PayPal, and Bitcoin. But yeah, that's it. So we will see you next week, next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. GMT. So bye, guys.